We are live, still preparing. We are live on Facebook with Maya Luna. Do you guys know who Maya Luna is? This is a very special, magical, tantric being. Maya Luna is a poet and teacher of feminine gnosis. She belongs to a lineage of untamed feral yoginis who transmit the primal core of the Tantra wisdom. Her work is focused on the lost feminine ways of knowing. Her spoken word poetry album, Holy Darkness, a tantric opus, is available on Bandcamp. Her first poetry book will be released this week. She is the creator of the Deep Feminine Mystery School, and I just adore this woman, have watched her just grow over these years and really like come into talking about some tricky situations and tricky things happening on the planet, but she does it with so much deliciousness and feminine wisdom that people just hear her and they're like, yum, yes. So welcome, Maya Luna. Tell us, we were just talking before we came on that the coronavirus is tantric. Please explain.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well.
And we're talking today about the joy of disillusionment, but first let's go straight into coronavirus, the tantric coronavirus.
Well, it's kind of the same thing in a way. I mean, to me, Tantra is the path of disillusionment, right? So the idea inside of Tantra is that we all have these cravings and these desires for this ultimate fulfillment, this ultimate experience of intimacy with the beloved, intimacy with the moment, this organic, natural, alive bliss of what it is to be in contact with our core and with this ineffable truth of the divine. And we constantly project that onto the future. So, oh, when I get this new job, I'll have the ultimate fulfillment. When I get this new lover, I'll have the ultimate fulfillment. When I, all on and on and on and on and on. And the truth is that every time we fulfill a desire, there's a disillusionment because it never takes us into that ultimate fulfillment. But the ultimate fulfillment is always here and always available, and it's actually in the reverse technology of going within, right? It's in us because it is us, and it's actually in even our desire for it is it itself. And I feel like the way that connects to the coronavirus right now is that gosh, we are so stifled all of the sudden in terms of what we can and cannot do, especially I think in the United States, we're very used to getting whatever we want, whenever we want it, and going where we want and doing what we want. And, and especially everyone, we always project into the future. Next month, I'm going to do this. Next, in 6 months, I'm going to do this. And this is my plan. And we're sort of always anticipating and waiting for the future. And now it's like we have no future all of a sudden. We have no idea what next week or next month is going to hold or what's available or what we can and cannot do. So we're sort of radically immersed into the present moment. And I think being challenged to really find the source of fulfillment within.
So true.
Yeah.
I love this discussion so much because this has really been my life's journey. I don't know if you saw the other day, I wrote about longing.
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'll tag you in my post, but I wrote about longing, and I had about 5 years of this extreme longing. I was like longing like for a beautiful world, longing for a community, longing to feel at home. Like it was like on, and it was very, very, very torturous.
Yeah.
And it would come in these like these waves of very deep depression. And and what I said in the post is this has been, I would say, my number one awakening to, because I had to go through all of that desire and get to the point where it's like, you know what, I am happy if I never have anything good in my life happen. Wow. And to me, that is the place that we have to be in order to really make things happen and get into alignment. First, we have to accept that maybe nothing is good is ever going to happen, but are we still going to be at peace and joy within ourselves?
Yes, that's it. Wow, beautiful. I've had similar experiences in my life of going through radical devastation and loss on every level. And especially last year, went through some really scary body health stuff, which I'd never had before. I'd always had my ease in my body and ease in my health. And suddenly I found myself sick and injured and not able to feel good and not able to walk. And it was very, very, very intense. And I had some of the most profound experiences of radical joy and love in the midst of that, because, you know, it's very easy for us to love and feel joy when our preferences and our needs are getting met. It's not that hard to feel good,
right,
when things are the way that we want them to be, you know. And so that is also one of the powerful yogas of disillusionment, is when our preferences are taken away, the love and the joy that is possible in those spaces is so much deeper, because it's not reliant on getting our preferences met, right? It's a deeper, more radical, unconditional space. That is birthright. And I think there's something about our constant chasing and seeking and longing, like you said, you know, longing for things to be different, or to finally be delivered into this eternal happiness by getting something that we want. It's there's a dream quality to it. There's an illusory quality to it, because it never quite scratches the itch, right? That's the American dream. Like, you get a car, and then like you get a better car, and then you get a house, and you get a better house, and then you just like constantly kind of like building and working towards something that never quite comes.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Have you ever packed a suitcase and you're like, it's going to be the best vacation ever? And like the lead up to the vacation was actually more fun than the actual vacation.
That's it. That's actually my favorite analogy, because that's one of the places where that phenomena is the most alive, is when we travel, you know, because we always have some kind of dream that when we get to the place, we're going to be like, enter this state of eternal bliss and presence in the moment, and everything's going to flow and it's magical, you know. And then you get there, and in a few days you start kind of like imagining how nice it'll be when you get home, and like, oh, I'm going to really focus on my brain, you know. It's that constant projection into the next thing and the next thing. And so what I've discovered for myself is that we can be disillusioned and take it as a disappointment and a loss, and continue to chase the carrot on the end of the stick, or we can really deeply receive the disillusionment, and in that it's the death of the illusion, which takes us into what is real, what is actually the real fulfillment, the real pleasure, the real nectar. that's already here waiting for us to drink from it, you know, and perhaps even, I think I dare say, is more simple than our chasing the carrot would like to believe it is. We like to make things very complicated, right?
Yes.
In our spirituality, it's like it's got to be very complicated to get.
Yeah, it's like we have to sit in a cave and be one with God. Or
Yeah, we've got to really do all these complicated things to get to something, right? It's always the getting to, never the having, right?
Uh-huh. But it is, the getting to is actually the dissembling of what our ideas of truth and joy and bliss and pleasure are. And as they all come crumbling down, then we get left with what is real.
Yeah.
But the crumbling down, let's not sugarcoat it.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty. It's crazy. It's earth-shatteringly painful. I know that I went through my process, and it's not to say that I don't have bad days anymore, because like today I woke up and I went down the rabbit hole. Like I was saying earlier, like I have just left the whole Corona thing, and I've just been focusing on what I'm doing, and I'm with a beautiful person here. So like, I'm not in that, but last night I woke up and I went down the rabbit hole of the conspiracy theories and the vaccination thing. And I was like, so today has been like a crazy day, and also just thinking like, wow, how long is this going to go on? And again, it's like letting those layers of just like, okay, it's going to go on as long as it's going to go on, and it could get freaking crazy out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I feel like because I've gone through allowing myself to be totally shattered and like just completely dissembled, that I'm less rocked than I once was. And I think that is the joy of getting older, the joy of being through a bunch of bullshit, and getting to the other side and realizing like, yum, I'm so much more free. Like, how do you tell us about how you're doing? Because I know Maya Luna has talked a lot about what she went through. I wrote her today. I was like, can we hear more, please? And she's like, little by little. But I want to hear, what is alive for you now because you went through this incredible process?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of similar to maybe what you just shared. I feel in 2019, I was brutally disassembled on every level, and I lost all my money. I lost my health. I went through a very traumatic relationship. I experienced a very weird like psychic attack. I lost my home and my temple. It was just, the stripping was so thorough and so.
Can you speak up just a little bit, baby? You're a little quiet.
Oh,
there we go.
The stripping was so total and so radical. And I'm sitting here now and I'm watching the world start to go through a lot of the same energies and themes that I went through. You know, the economy crashing and losing our money, and this illness and the virus and being quarantined. I was at home and isolated for almost the entire year. So I'm watching it and I'm sort of like, like I know how to do this, you know?
Yes.
And I think it's really the thing about the underworld, you know, and the thing about being taken into these archetypal descent journeys is that the more you struggle and kick against it, the worse it is. And if you allow it, it can be such a beautiful humbling of the ego. I mean, really, you know, because it's your whole sense of control and agency. You know, your whole sense of I'm okay because I'm in control and I can manipulate my environment and my circumstances. And when you start to lose control, it really confronts you with the part of you that is addicted to control and manipulation. And so you can keep fighting it, you know, or you can surrender and be humbled. And in that humbling of the places in us that are addicted to control and manipulation, again, just like disillusionment, we start to taste and experience who we are underneath that, which is our own soul, you know, our own deeper power that's deeper than just our capacity to have agency. And I think that's really what the underworld journeys are about. And look, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't go to the underworld and be radically stripped and, like, you know, maintain your shiny sense of being in control. It's not how it works, you know? And it's very tender, and there's a lot of grief and there's a lot of fear that can come up. I might sound kind of non-compassionate in the way I'm talking, but I think it's just because I've been through it so deeply that I know how beautiful and powerful it is. The dark night of the soul is kind of like the ultimate spiritual initiation, you know.
I don't hear any uncompassionate at all coming from you. I feel incredible compassion coming from you. Yeah, because you've been there.
Yeah.
And I feel that I feel a lot of us have been preparing for this for many, many years.
It is a collective dark night of the soul. I mean, that essentially is what is happening.
But if we see that I know that from my dark night of the soul, which was a long dark night of the soul, like it was long, it was brutal. I know that for me on the other side, I don't want to go back into that, but I give thanks for it. It's like, thank you so much for showing me that I really have a joy and happiness that is so deep within me that I can always come back to in every moment, no matter what's happening. And so if I can look at, wow, how that disillusionment, and it was real disillusionment, because like I was going into like, let's law of attraction our way out of this. And I was like, you know, there's no law of attractioning your way out of it. I think that we can create our reality, absolutely, but we have to go through a certain disillusionment process before we can be in alignment with ourselves. And so I just see that in all of this, we are coming to a more clear place within ourselves and as a globe. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. I think to really go through the stripping and the dark night of the soul, you have to have no idea how you're going to get out. It wouldn't be authentic unless it was, you know, no light at the end of the tunnel. So for me to even talk about, you know, the beauty of our emerging feels sort of like the medicine that we need is maybe to really be deeply, deeply, profoundly humbled. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like teetering on that edge because I feel like for me, because I've gone through this crazy longing where everything was just like gone. I feel that now it's very beautiful for me to be in the openness of what is possible. Because I see that when I stay in this openness, the universe is generally blessing me because I've built that incredible trust And I think that that's the key, is like when in the joy of disillusionment, our trust is built that things do turn out, right?
Cool. Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful way to say it. It's almost like true faith is born in those spaces, you know,
Yeah.
not because you even know that things are going to be okay, but because you learn how to bow down and radically open to what is, you know, and you experience perhaps being held. I think that was my experience, you know, like I was saying, I was sick and I was losing all my money and I couldn't walk for a while. Like my body was injured. I mean, it was like extreme impotence, you know? And the experience of heldness, like the okayness that I was able to touch into, not all the time, but when it would arise, it was very profound and deep, you know, sort of like you said, the trust and the faith that is even deeper than perhaps what we're used to putting our trust and our faith in.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, if we want to really talk about the Tantra, it's like we are all invited to work with our fear of death right now. And the medicine, the reason why the Tantrics work with the energy of death is because there's so much psychic energy in our own subconscious fear of our own dying. There's so much energy there that's just sort of like tucked away, you know, sort of like don't touch it ever. And I think that's sort of actually probably where the toilet paper hoarding comes from, you know, like, I mean, you know this, right? It's like the root chakra,
Survival.
right? Survival. Everyone's like, help, we're gonna die, you know, like the symbolism of that.
We won't be able to wipe our asses.
Yeah, well, just like bringing the attention, the psychic energy on the root, on the anus, on, you know, and sort of being represented, I think, through toilet paper. But what we really could do instead of stock up on toilet paper is contemplate and work with our own death. And talk about embracing the radiance of being alive. Nothing does that like deeply understanding that there's an expiration date on this life, that you will die and you don't know when. You have no idea when. There's really nothing else that takes us into the incredible preciousness and aliveness and vibrancy of being alive. Like understanding that it's not going to be this way forever. You know? So that's perhaps an invitation here as well, you know. Strong medicine, but
and that our jobs could change, our financial system could change, our
death on every level.
I think that death, it comes into, they were saying like after the coronavirus, we're finally going to get to see how many, what your real hair color is. Because nobody's able to like go and get their dye jobs. No one's able to go and get like all this, maybe the stuff that they do to make themselves look beautiful. Like there is so much death in, you know, all like there's so much death happening in this coronavirus. And we are just, I mean, like you said, we're accepting how, for me, I'm accepting how long this could go on.
Yeah.
Like this could be a long ass ride.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that too. My roommate and I were were noticing that the other day, how in March we were kind of like planning, you know, like, oh, in May this will kind of be over, and like, you know, then we'll do this and this, and now it's sort of sinking in, like, oh no, there's no future right now.
There's no future.
Just this. And that's profound, you know, that to not have a future that's known is incredibly enlivening. I mean, talk about presence, coming into the present moment and living for the now.
Yes.
We're really being invited to do that on a global level. I don't know if that's ever happened, ever, on the history of the planet.
I think there's something beautiful about our reunion with all the world, like that we're all going through this is really unifying.
Oh yeah.
In some kind of beautiful way. So Maya, what would you say to people who are in the midst of this disillusionment process and they're really going through it?
Well, first I would say that it is painful, you know, to have those illusions taken away, and but to allow the stripping to take you deeper into that which can never be stripped away. Because that's all that we really have ever. And that's the gift and the blessing of these radical dismemberments, is that it shows us that, you know, it's like it was always true that was all we had, but it's undeniable in these spaces. And for me, you know, I just keep coming back to these sort of inner tantric yogas, which are really about savoring the breath, savoring the heart, savoring the senses, savoring the sensations in the body. These very simple, humble practices of deep fulfillment, you know, that nothing can take that away except for actual literal death. But as long as we are alive, we have that capacity to intimately be with what is, and in our own body, in our own experience. And that actually is the gateway to real, you know, bliss, truth, God, love, whatever we want to call it, joy. That is the pathway. And I think that, my gosh, I mean, when I tune into what's happening, it's sort of like we all knew that our lifestyle was unsustainable. Like we knew that for so long, but could we stop? No, because we're addicted. We're addicts. We're addicted to consuming and taking and more, right? The hungry ghost, which again, never satisfied, always trying to get more, taking from the earth in this very destructive process. And you know, it just feels like Gaia is kind of like able to breathe now. Like we've backed off a little bit from our taking. And I think that if we if we welcome it, this moment in time can invite us to really learn how to be with less. You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think the way that Tantra weaves into that is that, you know, being with less, or being more minimal, or taking less, consuming less, doesn't have to be this big loss. Because in fact, the insanity of our consumption is that we're never satisfied anyways, the more we consume. So being with, it's not about how much we consume, it's about how much we can savor. Right? That's the Tantra. It's like turn one bite into a feast, you know, and that's what, and you know, that's what you learn in these inner yogas and these practices is how to deeply savor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's perhaps the key right now to learning how to be with, how to consume less and be more satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
That's my hope. That's my hope for what happens right now on the planet.
Mm.
I would be very disappointed if this ended and we went right back to our, insane consumption habits.
I feel so many people feeling that right now.
Yeah.
And so many people praying for that right now. It's like, okay, finally, there's actually something we've all been calling in, and it's not easy, but we have all been calling in, and we all have to call ourselves out on those ways that we are addicted to. I mean, for me, I'm not really a things kind of person. So like consuming isn't really a thing for me. However, I'm having to see, like, I travel all over the world all the time. Like, I've been to so many countries, just traveled this whole last year. And I'm having to be like, wow, I am suddenly grounded inside of a house. And I've got my woods down the street, but that's pretty much all that's happening for like a month, a few months, who knows how long. So it's like saying yes to that process of our consumption on every single level.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And even the way we relate, like we're having to be very careful about who we let into our sphere. Very intentional about who we let within 6 feet of our body. It's like everything feels like if we let it, it's becoming much more. I'm just getting this image of like, the Zen minimalist kind of, you have your little cup of tea and you really sit and you savor your tea, and that's the transmission that we need on a global level, I think. And it is, it's like we got bitch slapped by Gaia, like she finally was just like smacked us across the face. And that's what it took, right? Because even though we knew what we were doing was wrong, we didn't know how to stop. And that's real. And that's important to look at, I think, And perhaps this can be a pattern disrupt that can teach us that it's not only okay to live with less, to consume less, to be more conservative in our lifestyle, but that the experience of satisfaction and fulfillment comes from how deeply we can receive and be with what we have, rather than always chasing more.
Yes.
I mean, and we know that's true. Like you look at there, I think there's a documentary called Happiness. Have you seen that?
I have, yes.
And it was a while ago.
But I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. What is it?
I mean, as I remember, it's just really exploring the difference between, really wealthy people in the Western world that can buy and get anything they want, and how deeply unhappy they are compared to like, the tuk-tuk driver in India that has one pair of shoes, that lives very simply and has like an ecstatic, alive, open heart, because they have the things that actually make you happy rather than stuff, So there's an invitation perhaps to really remember that and return to that, and return to what this life is really about and what really brings us fulfillment and joy and pleasure.
Yes, let's just all take a deep breath in and just like breathe that in. that deep medicine that we're all being given right now of just the simpleness. I'm just noticing myself because I go down to the woods, like they're just down the street, and I go to them like 3 times a day. And just being really conscious even there, like, okay, let's take even more consciousness to be with each breath, because oftentimes I'm like, you know, thinking about this, that, but it's like, no, that walk is a sacred time to just be totally present and breathe in the trees. And
and it just really is true that there's this technology, I call it savoring, right? Where we're meditating with the senses, like intimately, deeply receiving, seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, feeling. And there is a quality of deep and profound fulfillment that comes from that process of savoring. I know you know what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having all of those desires within us, it's almost like there's like, they're like thousands of these little beings that are actually driving us crazy. They're actually making us mad. Like,
yeah, the hungry ghosts.
Pardon?
The hungry ghosts.
The hungry ghosts. Yeah, like it's maddening. And when we can actually just come into this deep place, the hungry ghosts, they don't have the fuel anymore, and so they can begin to soften and integrate into our center
and be fed.
And be fed, yes, by the truth.
Yeah, actually fed, you know, truly fed. Yeah, so that's my hope. That's my desire, is that we can have a pattern disrupt from the hungry ghost that's always future projecting and future chasing and wanting more and consuming more and never satisfied, and learn how to savor and experience the fulfillment of what's here.
I love it. And Maya, do you have a poem for us?
Yes, I do.
Yay, this woman is an incredible poet. I'm excited for this transmission.
This is a really short and sweet one. It's called Let the Heart Break Open. With every dream fulfilled, there is disillusionment. With every desire fulfilled, there is disillusionment. With every fantasy fulfilled, there is disillusionment. Embrace this disillusionment as a vehicle to take you into the heart of reality, shining with simple perfection, radiating with emptiness, stripping you down to be naked before the moment.
I love it.
Naked before the moment. Yeah.
Yum. I feel like you have just read a poem about my life.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like not very many people really talk about longing. And for me, that was my greatest initiation, was in the longing.
Wow.
And
when you say longing, do you mean
to me, my definition of longing is grieving for what you don't have.
Got it.
So there's grieving for like somebody I knew I loved died. And so we're very used to discussing. We know how to deal in some ways with that kind of grief. There's even a process, like here's the grieving process. when you lose someone or when you're grieving something that you had. But very few people are talking about the longing for life to be different than what it is, and the incredible grief that comes along with that longing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You were really intimate with the disappointment and loss of not having the fulfillment of what you deeply wanted.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it talks on and on about this in all of my charts and everything. And it talks about that my number one life purpose, which I feel like I'm only just really beginning to talk about it because I'm on the kind of the other side of it, is helping people with longing. And I really desire to help people because I feel like it's something that we're not talking about. Is this longing. It's not just the hungry ghosts of what you're talking about, which is like we want things. It's this like crazy longing for our life to look a certain way and be a certain way, and longing for, for a beautiful life.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm.
But realizing that underneath all of that longing is the real, true joy and beauty of life.
That's right. Yeah, I love that you're talking about this. And perhaps this is where that poem came from that I just read, but I've noticed for myself that when I think about my life maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, everything that I wanted, that I was longing for in terms of like what I wanted to do with my life, what I wanted to be, what I wanted to achieve, the kind of life I wanted to be living, I've accomplished all those things.
Mm.
But it didn't give me what I thought it was going to give me.
Mm.
Like, it's wonderful, and I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't it didn't give me the fantasy of what I thought it would give me.
Mm.
I don't know if that connects to what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
that's very confronting, to really, and again, invites us to dig deeper into like, what is the true joy, the true fulfillment, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm. And in wanting and not getting our wants, we surrender. And it's in that surrender that we can really open to the beauty that life actually wants to give us.
Yes.
And I think that that's like the other side of the law of attraction, is just like, okay, we've been talking a lot because that's the tantric way. It's like, rather than saying what we want, it's like surrendering so deeply that what we are meant to have naturally comes into alignment for us. Because life does get better on the other side. Not better, it gets more in alignment. More grace, more ease, right? Yeah.
So how did you make it through your profound longing? What was that like?
I just let myself long, just sat with it and surrendered everything over and over and over and over and over again, until it just spiraled out of my nervous system.
Oh, wow.
Because I think when we sit with it and we surrender, it spirals out of our nervous system, right?
I like that way of describing it. Spiraling out of the nervous system.
Or those hungry ghosts integrate into our true self. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my God, this has been so beautiful. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, we've got a lot to rap about.
Yeah, we really do.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so honored that you came. And Yeah, I appreciate your work so much and what you're doing. So make sure to contact this woman, everyone. And she's an incredible force of beautiful, amazing wisdom that the world really needs. So
Thank you so much, Shezza.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Lots of love, everyone.
Bye.